Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond. I'm a literacy specialist, and in this video, I'm going to share with you my 5 top tips for teaching kindergarten, first grade, and second grade students to respond to writing prompts. If you were trying to join me right on time, apologize for coming in a little late. It has been a day, but I am so excited to chat with you. Writing is one of my absolute favorite things to teach. When I first started teaching, I had no idea what I was doing. I did have a wonderful teacher education program in my undergraduate degree, so I'm not knocking that. But as you probably know, there is just something to be said for the learning that happens once you're teaching and once you really know what it's like. And so even though I started out my career really having no idea what I was doing, soon that I found that I love teaching writing. And I grew to love teaching writing because I was learning. I was reading things, I was experimenting with my kids. So that's where I'm at today, but that was definitely not where I started. If you're joining me, I would love to know what grade you teach, just so I can kind of get a feel of who is here, and then also how you feel about teaching writing. Do you love it? Do you feel like it's okay? Do you not enjoy teaching writing? I actually know a lot of teachers that don't enjoy teaching writing, and I totally understand that. Sometimes we don't enjoy teaching writing because we might feel that we aren't good writers, or we might feel like we don't know how to teach writing. So if you don't enjoy teaching writing, that is totally okay. Let me know right now in the comments though, number 1, what grade you teach, so I know what levels are represented here and I can make sure to tailor it to what you need. And then number 2, do you enjoy teaching writing or not so much? Amber, Vanessa, amazing. So excited to have you here. We've got K-1 combo. That is a challenging combo, Amber. I don't know if you agree, but to me it's challenging. Vanessa, kindergarten, amazing. Thanks for sharing, everybody. All right, so like I said, today we're going to talk about my 5 top tips with lots of details for teaching kids to respond to writing prompts in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. When I'm talking about writing prompts, I'm not talking about writing workshop per se. I'm talking more like there's a specific question. I've got lots of examples here to show you. You know, there's a specific question, write about this, write about that, and then the kids are answering that. So that's what I mean when I'm saying writing prompts. Now, writing prompts are something that seems pretty straightforward. Like, okay, you just tell them what to write and they do it. But I don't know about you, but my kids often don't write as much as I would like them to, or don't have the quality of writing that I would like them to. If you've ever experienced where your kids just write like a sentence or 2 and they don't include enough detail, in the comments right now, would you just let me know not enough detail? Because I know that if that's the case for you, then you are not alone. Nitsisa, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I feel like we've chatted before. Jennifer, hey, so glad you could make it. All right, so it can be challenging. Let me know if you agree. Sometimes I don't give enough detail, but I have a lot of tips that will really help you and your students. So tip number 1, we're gonna get right into it, is to provide kids with the right kind of writing prompt. I put that in quotation marks because we're always learning, right? There's no one right way of doing things in teaching in general, but I wanna give you some guidelines as far as what the right kind of writing prompt can be. Number 1, we want to choose prompts that are like specific enough so that the kids have something to go on, but not so specific that it requires them to draw upon life experiences that they may or may not have had. So let me give you an example. In this prompt, this comes from my differentiated writing prompts, which are actually on sale now through October 24th, I believe. In this writing prompt, it just says, choose any game that you've played recently. Explain whether or not you would recommend it to a friend. Tell why or why not. I believe this is from the second grade writing prompt bundle. But anyway, when I wrote this prompt, I was thinking about the fact that there's different types of games kids play. If I had written the prompt to be, write about a game you like playing with your family, that would be me assuming that the kids play games with their families. And for some families, that's true, but for some families, that's not true. So I wrote it this way because this opens it up to a variety of things. It could be a game that they play at school, like tag. They probably play some types of game, you know, in PE class. Maybe you play games with the class. It could be a video game. It could be a family game. So this is specific enough so that it's like, okay, we're writing about games, but it's not so specific that they wouldn't have had the life experience to write about it. Let me know if that makes sense or if you have any questions about that. So when we're choosing the right kind of prompt, we're looking for a prompt that's specific enough, but not so specific that it doesn't give them much to work with. Another thing that I think is helpful is to include some kind of visual with the prompts. Now, I included them for K-1 too. I feel like it's extra important for your kinders and first graders because often they might sit down and forget what they're supposed to be writing about. And so this little, just a small visual of some kind, whether you display it on the board or whatever, can just give that reminder of what on earth they're supposed to be doing. So I think that providing some kind of visual is helpful as well. When I choose writing prompts, I try to choose a mix of narrative, informational, and opinion writing. Now, this type of writing is not the only type that I do throughout the school year. What I like to do when I have the choice is to do like one unit of writing workshop, which is more open-ended. So for example, after we do like the introduction unit at the beginning of the year, we'll go into personal narrative writing. And that's when kids are writing true stories from their own lives. You might have heard them called small moments stories or small moments writing, same thing. And in that unit, I'm teaching them all kinds of skills. Like it does depend on the grade level, but adding details about how you felt, or if it's an older grade, like, putting in dialogue or just a basic beginning, middle, end, drawing with detail. So I'm teaching them different mini lessons in that unit. So as part of that unit, they're actually getting to choose their topics. There's no prompts. I just tell them, come up with a true story about your own life. I do give them support. I say, hey, maybe you could write about a time when you felt really angry or a time when you felt really sad. So I do give them help and support with choosing topics, but it's ultimately up to them to choose what they want to write about. So that unit lasts anywhere from like 3 to 6 weeks, sometimes a little longer if there's multiple projects. But then what I'll do is I'll follow it up with a week, maybe 2 weeks of prompt writing in the same genre. So after we've learned to write narratives, like personal moments or whatever, personal narratives, small moments, mixing the two, then we might do some personal narrative or narrative prompt writing. So I kind of go back and forth between like more student choice and then the prompts, more student choice and then the prompts. I really feel like both are important. We know that in life, kids have to be able to respond to prompts, right? Like whether it's for their college admission essay or even just to like answer a question on some sort of application, we have to do this type of on-demand writing. But I also feel like there's value in giving kids more choice and letting them be creative and letting them just, explore what it means to be a writer. So I feel like both are important. I've kind of gone down a rabbit hole with that, but coming back to point number 1, provide the right kind of prompt, specific but not too specific, and then also visuals are helpful. All right, tip number 2 is to model your own response to the prompt. So when I was first teaching, and actually I'm thinking back to my student teaching experience, I had it was actually a pretty cool project that I was doing with my class. It was like, I don't know, like the culminating project that you do. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember the exact details, but I remember it being pretty cool. And I laid it all out. I had this big plan and whatever, and then I told them what to write, and it was basically prompt writing, and they didn't know what to do at all. Like the kids were frustrated. I was confused. I was like, I told you what to write. Like, why can't you do it? Like these are smart kids. So what I learned from that experience is that I can't just tell them, hey, write about X, Y, and Z. I actually have to show them. I actually have to respond to the same prompt and think aloud so that they understand what they're supposed to be doing. Now, one hesitation that I had was that, aren't the kids just going to copy me? Let me know in the comments right now. I want you to tell me if your students, after you model or do an example, do they copy you? Let me know right now in the comments. I really want to know, do your students tend to copy your example? Yes, Linda, prompt writing is done for many state tests as well. I don't know of a state that doesn't do it these days. Okay, can't wait to see if your students tend to copy your writing or not, because that has been a big concern of mine. Amber says, right, that was my thought. Anybody else? Students copying your writing. Linda says, yes, the lower skilled with writing do copy. Gina says, yes. So fortunately, you are not alone. I see lots of yeses. Kids copy our writing, and it makes sense. they're seeing us as the expert writers. We may or may not see ourselves as expert writers, but in their eyes, like, we are the rock stars of writing. If you want to get good at something, you model your work after a rock star, right? If I wanted to get back into tennis again, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go after a tennis star, but like, I would look at my instructor and see what they're doing, and I would try to copy it, right? It is only natural for us to model our behavior after what we're trying to attain. So it's totally normal for that to happen. However, it is good to model writing for our kids, and it is also good to expect them to go beyond that and use their own ideas. And the way that you do that is just by really praising the kids that do go their own path with it. So from the very beginning of the year, you know, we might do some type of writing and the kids are going to copy my example, but if you usually will have at least one student who is original and they do come up with something unique. Highlight that student, bring them up to the front of the class, talk about how they follow directions and they use their own ideas. Really celebrate that. And when the kids see you celebrating that, they will be so motivated to try it out themselves. That said, it does take time, right? Especially in kindergarten, first grade too. The kids aren't going to be super original right away, but that's okay. It just takes time. What we can't do is we can't not model, because then we're not going to get the result that we want, just like I didn't with my student teaching final project gone awry. So modeling is so important. When I model, I'm telling them what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So like, let me see if I can find a different example to show you. These again are from my differentiated writing prompts that are on sale. This I think is a kindergarten example. It just says, what book character would you like to meet and why? And so when I'm answering, just to like tell them the topic, you know, I read them, I would like to meet, and I was saying, let me think about some of my favorite books. What have we read recently that I really enjoyed? You can even model, maybe you have a basket or a bin in your class to look through, right? Model, trying to come up with an idea. And then, you know, I come upon Elephant and Piggy. Oh, you know what? I would really like to meet Piggy, right? So I'm going to write that and I'm going to tell them I am going to finish this to make it a complete sentence. I'm not just going to write Piggy. I'm going to give the reader a little more detail. Piggy from the Elephant and Piggy books. So model writing it. I'm telling them what I'm doing and why. And then, you know, like in this prompt, I'm giving a reason. I'm going to tell them, I'm not just going to write she is fun and playful. I'm going to tell them now I need to give a reason so that my reader understands why I want to meet Piggy so much. They need to understand why Piggy is so important to me or why I like Piggy. So I'm writing and I'm telling them why I'm doing it. Now this prompt is very structured. With the differentiated writing prompts, you don't have to use one that's so structured. Let me see if I can find one without. I don't know if I have one without or not. I don't remember. Because these have, you have options, right? You could use the sentence starters. You could not use the sentence starters. The sentence starters structure for them. Okay, apparently I did not bring one without sentence starters, but if you think about like kids that are getting to the point where they're writing an introduction or writing a conclusion, you tell them as you're writing, the first thing I'm gonna write is my introduction. I need to explain to my reader, da, 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 da. You are teaching the kids through your language how to put yourself in the reader's shoes. You have to talk about, you know, my reader's not gonna know this, or my reader might wonder that. So you're teaching them to take the perspective of their future reader for their own writing. And this does not happen magically. It does not happen overnight. The more you model and think aloud, the more that voice becomes their internal voice when they're writing and the more they absorb it. Amber says, would the kids fill in their responses at the same time as you're modeling? So Amber, typically what I'll do is I would just so Amber, I know you're a K-1 teacher, so let me just try to find like a K-1 example. So typically what I do, Amber, is I would try out just doing the whole piece. Like I know you can't see the whole thing, but this is basically the whole piece at that level. So I would probably just model the whole piece and then have them, you know, go at it. However, if your kids are struggling and that modeling is not enough, what I will do is I will model piece by piece. So I'll have them with clipboards. I'll have them sit on the rug in front of me, and then I will write my first sentence, and then the kids will write, and I will write my next sentence, and the kids will write. But the ultimate goal is for me to be able to model, explain, and then they go ahead and do it on their own, right? So I will only break it down if I truly feel like they need it. You could always do it at the very beginning when you're, teaching this stuff too. Let me know how that sounds, Amber. Linda, I agree. I love Elephant and Piggy. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh, I was talking about modeling. I was talking about thinking aloud. Praise, praise, praise those kids who, are doing something more original, and just talk to the other kids about it, and then they will be motivated to do that as well. Another thing that I think helps with originality, if you're using a consistent type of writing prompt, like you've seen me flip through this a little bit, these are different grade levels. And of course, they're different questions, different genres, whatever. Like this is 2nd grade, and then we have like some kindergarten, some 1st grade examples. But the nice thing about these is that there's a lot of consistency. You get a ton of prompts. I don't remember, it's like 120 or something. So you have so many choices. You obviously don't have to use them all, but they're structured the same way. So if you use a structured set like this, that's really consistent at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of a genre, you do a lot of modeling, but eventually you can get to the point where you give the kids the prompt and they write. Again, it's not going to happen right away, but that can cut down on copying too, because if you taught and modeled and modeled and modeled, you eventually get to the point where you don't have to model quite as much, or maybe you only model the first part, or you like talk the kids through it and you don't actually write. So using a consistent set of prompts can be really helpful because the kids come to know what to expect, and then eventually you can do a little bit less modeling. Again, that takes time. Linda says, key to writing is every time you write anything, model stretching words. Yep, that is the practice my kids need to not be scared of their words. Absolutely agree with that, for sure, 100%. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about, so tip number 2, again, is model your actual response to the prompt. And the last thing I want to talk about is a little tip that can help you with modeling writing. So in the chat right now, in the comments, I want you to let me know if you've ever gone to model writing and you're kind of like stumbling, like you're maybe not making the writing as good as it could have been if you had written it ahead of time. You want to write it right there in the moment, but you're like, gosh, like, where is this going? Is this good? Like, you've got this internal dialogue in your head. And you're also trying to manage the kids, right? Like everybody's, is everybody listening? Are you paying attention? And so as a result, your writing sample that you're modeling doesn't come out quite as good as you would have liked it to be. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had that happen to you, where you're kind of like stumbling a little bit, or you get stuck and you're like, I don't want to like sit here. I need to keep the lesson moving. Let me know if that's ever happened to you. I hope that I'm not the only one that happens to. So I have definitely had this happen to me. And one thing that helps is for me to actually prepare a writing sample beforehand. So I want to write in front of the kids. I want to be, thinking aloud and writing as I do it. Okay. I want them to see that. But sometimes my thinking and my writing is better when I do it ahead of time. So what you could do, and I don't have 2 copies of the same prompt, but you could take a copy of this prompt, for example. You could write your example, and you just kind of like, you don't have to show it to the kids. You want them to see you writing in the moment. You just kind of keep it off to the side, but you're basically copying what you wrote before. Now, like Amber says that has happened to me. Who would have thought 1st grade writing would get me stumped? Yes, sometimes it just flows and sometimes it doesn't, right? Like, we are human beings, yes? Especially if you're getting up into like 2nd grade or higher writing, sometimes you want to model something more advanced. So keep your little cheat sheet off to the side. The kids don't have to see it. Even sometimes if you don't want to have it like right next to you, even just writing it out ahead of time can kind of get you ready. So I highly recommend having some kind of cheat sheet and doing it before. You can also help the lesson move more quickly if you do that, because you're not like fumbling around being like, oh geez, what did I forget? What do I need to do? It just helps the lesson move more quickly, which is good because our littles do not have very long attention spans, as we all know. Linda says, write yourself in a dead end, then admin comes to do a walk. Yes, always excellent timing on that. Okay, so again, if you're just joining me, I would love to know what grade you teach and if you've ever found writing to be challenging or teaching writing to be challenging. So tip number 1 was, again, provide the right kind of prompt. Tip number 2 was model your actual response. And then tip number 3 is provide graphic organizers. I think that years ago, I used to think that for prompt writing, you didn't really need a graphic organizer because it was just like, oh, like they're just writing a couple sentences, no big deal. But I do feel like there's value in using graphic organizers. And now I'm going to share like some examples of the type of organizers that I use and just give you some tips for using them in general. I do want to say that at the very beginning of usually like kindergarten, first, even second, I don't do a ton of graphic organizers because particularly with kindergarten, they tend to get confused about like, what is the relationship between the graphic organizer and the actual piece of writing. I've had kids write something in the graphic organizer, something wonderful, and then I'm asking them to transfer it to like a little booklet or whatever to write their story, their complete story, and they end up writing something totally different. Let me know if that's ever happened to you. There can be confusion between the graphic organizer and what they're actually writing, right? So all that is to say, I don't always start the year. Sometimes we actually start by making books, especially in kinder and first grade. And then I introduce the graphic organizer and I'm like, hey, by the way, this is a great way to plan your writing. So just a side note about that, let me show you some different types of graphic organizers. This is like a timeline graphic organizer, and the prompt was write about a time when you felt surprised. My differentiated writing prompts actually have, so like you would have the prompt on the page, you would have the prompt on the organizer, like it's all done for you and you just print it out. Anyway, this is a timeline graphic organizer. It has first, next, then last, and it's got the little numbers on the bottom. You could do something, I know you've done this before, but just want to point out that simple is not bad. Beginning, middle, end. You can't see that, but it's end, right? That's for narrative. This is a little bit more complicated graphic organizer that's for, like second grade, maybe first grade as well. And the prompt is, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? So they're writing their opinion here. They're giving 2 reasons, and then they're doing some type of conclusion. So graphic organizers are really valuable because they can give your kids that structure. So when they actually go to write, it's not just like, I would eat pizza. It's good. Right? Like it sort of forces them, it requires them to do a little bit more. They have to do a little more planning. And when you use something that's structured like this, it gives them what they need to be successful when they actually go to write. Here is another graphic organizer. This is for, I think, a first grade informational prompt. Again, my prompts are on sale right now. I left the link up there for you and you can let me know if you can't find it, but so this one was right about an animal that lives in the ocean. So it's informational. You would do this like maybe after you'd read some ocean animal books. You want the kids to have some knowledge coming into it. And so the topic just goes in the middle, like if it was like sharks or whatever, and then they'd write 4 facts. And through this graphic organizer, this then requires them to do that thinking so that when they transfer it to the paper, they already have 4 facts. And they're not just going to be like, a shark lives in the ocean, the end, right? It kind of requires them to do a little bit more thinking and dig a little bit deeper. We talked earlier about how, your kids might just write like a sentence or not write very much. And the graphic organizers, if you structure it like this, it's a really good way to kind of get around that. So graphic organizers are amazing, even for prompt writing. And of course, I also use them for like more open-ended writing. Oh, I should also say when we are taking, a graphic organizer, especially with like the little ones with maybe they've done like beginning, middle, end, you can have them draw pictures. They do not have to write words in here, but you are going to need to model. You're going to need to have an entire lesson, and you're probably going to need to do it over and over again if you teach K1, where you take what you've put in the graphic organizer and you think aloud while you turn it into your story. Oh, I drew a picture of that, or oh, I wrote this. Now when I do my story, I'm going to add some more details, right? This was my plan, but it's not the whole story. I say that over and over and over again. This is my plan, but it's not the entire piece of writing, right? So they need to see you think aloud and transfer it to your actual piece. Something that can help with this too, with narrative writing, is to give them a little stapled booklet, 3 pages, First page is the beginning, second page is the middle, third page is the end. The more structure you can give them, the better, especially when, they're just learning how to do this. So graphic organizers are amazing. All right, my tip number 4 is to differentiate your writing prompts. I have papers thrown all over here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring them back and I'm going to show you some ways that you can provide different supports for your students. Now, before I do that, I want to ask you a question. This is a really, you're watching this live as I'm doing this in 2021. This is a really unique year. Our kids have had some tough academic years for the past couple of years, and so they're on a variety of levels. So I am really curious right now, at least when it comes to writing, are your kids like mostly on the same level? Are they at like a big range of levels? Just let me know in the comments. Just say mostly on the same level or big range of levels. So for me, when I was doing prompt writing, especially in like first and second grade, a challenge that I was coming up against was that some kids, you give them the prompt, you model, and they can go, go, go. And they did a great job. And some kids just needed like a different level of support. And at first I wasn't sure how to provide them that support because I was like, okay, I've modeled. I'm like coming by to like help you, maybe pulling a small group. Like, what more do I need to do? Aletta, I hope I'm saying your name right. Big range of levels. Linda, Amber. And Cisa, are you looking for these prompts? I actually have them in my Teachers Pay Teacher store. There's a link in the little caption or whatever that goes along with this. So I see a lot of people with big range of levels. And so when it comes to writing, we want to find ways that are practical for us, right? But to give our kids different levels of support because they don't all need the same thing. So you can see, and you've probably seen from some of these if you've been watching that I've been flipping through, there are different little tools that you can either put on the board or you can actually put on the paper. The nice thing about these differentiated writing prompts is that there's multiple copies of the same prompt. I wish I had like printed out multiple copies, but just imagine for me for a second that you've got this prompt and there's one version that's literally just lines and that's it. And then there's one version that has a word bank. And then there's a different version that has sentence starters. And then there's another version that has, oops, you can't even see it. I'm pointing to it and you cannot even see this. It has a little self-assessment checklist. And then some versions, like this one, have multiple tools. So in that bundle, every single writing prompt has multiple versions because I wanted you to just be able to go and print out exactly what you needed. Half of your kids might need nothing, right? Half of your kids might need all these supports. Some of your kids might need just a word bank. So I'm going to go through these different supports and talk about like how you can use them and who they are appropriate for. So first up on the page is just a word bank. This is helpful for a variety of reasons. Number one, it's helpful if you have English language learners who just need a little baseline vocabulary. Number two, it's helpful for students who maybe are a little bit slower with spelling, like not like slower, like mentally, but like it just takes them a while, right? Like it just takes them a while to get the words out. So if you have a couple words to go on, it can kind of speed up the writing process. Another group of students that it's helpful for are students, so what do we say? We say the ELLs, the students who take a little bit longer to write. Oh, those students that are maybe a little bit more hesitant to spell words. So I do want them to spell as many words as possible on their own, but also, again, if they're a little bit, hesitant, this can just speed up the writing process. And then the words can also elevate their vocabulary. You may have students that have lower vocabularies or language issues for whatever reason. So giving them some words to work with is going to elevate their response beyond just like, it is fun, right? Like we have fun here, but we also have enjoyable, interesting, easy, difficult, learn. There's different words to help the kids with their prompt. It also helps them with ideas. So with the differentiating prompts, there are, for every single prompt, there's an option that just has a word bank and nothing else. Again, this version of the prompt though has multiple tools. Another tool that you might use with your students, and you probably already do, is sentence starters. I like these on the page because then there's no, difficulty with copying. Now, I do want to say that I don't use sentence starters every time we write. At the very beginning of the year, I actually don't like to use sentence starters at all because I want them to get in the habit of constructing a complete sentence. Now, kindergartners, we're not doing that yet, right? But first and second graders. The first grader sentences, or the kindergartners, when they get there, they might be a hot mess. They might just be jumbled together, right? That's normal. But I want to empower them, and that's like a whole different PD session, but I want to empower them to know, hey, I have this idea. I can write it in a sentence, right? And I don't necessarily need someone to tell me exactly what to say. So I want them to feel empowered before I start giving them sentence starters, which sounds a little bit backwards, right? You'd think like, okay, start out easier and then get harder. If you have English language learners or kids that just have really, writing is very challenging, you can start out with the sentence starters. But for the majority of the kids, starting out the year, empowering them to write complete sentences on their own is very, very helpful. Trust me, you want to try it for sure if you haven't. But once we get to the point where I'm like, okay, let's do some sentence starters, these can be helpful, again, for English language learners. They can also be helpful for students who need help with structure and ideas. So like, again, the prompt was choose any game and explain why not you would recommend it. So it's getting them to name the game. It's getting them to, like they circle one, I would or would not recommend it because they're giving a reason. And then the so is to write a conclusion. Are they, asking the reader to try it out? Are they telling the reader, don't try it out? So it's structuring their response, okay? So the sentence starters can do many things. They can help with, language and even knowing where to start, right? Like sometimes you have kids that sit down and they're like, I don't know where to start. Having that little running start for them can just kind of push them in the right direction. So they can be very helpful. Linda says, biggest block I find is their lack of trust on some words, so word bank would help. Yes, especially if it's like, Linda, like a nonfiction topic where they're using really specific language. Again, it can elevate the language that they're using. So the last little support that I want to show you, and this doesn't have to be on the paper. I did do it in my differentiated writing prompts because I just didn't want you to have to worry about it, but you can have it on like another half sheet. It's just a self-assessment checklist. So it's like capital letters, punctuation, spelling. I told my opinion, I gave reasons, I wrote an ending. So it's like the things that you're looking for in the piece of writing, I have it right there at the bottom, okay? The reason I have it there at the bottom, and you could have it on a separate sheet of paper, that works too. The reason I have it there at the bottom is because we want kids to be as responsible for their own work as possible, right? I teach them at the beginning, they're not gonna be like handing it to me, Mrs. Ryan, I'm done. They are responsible for going over their work and looking for mistakes and trying to improve it. Obviously, at the K-2 level, this takes time, right? That's what I keep saying this whole time, but this takes time. The self-assessment checklist, if you model how to use it, because you got to model how to use it repeatedly over and over again, it can help them remember to look for these things. And then there's also no, am I done? Because, well, did you do this? Did you do this, right? Like they're supposed to go check it off. This can also help with fast finishers who scroll a few sentences and they're like, I'm done, right? No, you're not. You need to go through this. You do have to train them so they're not just like checking stuff off and being like, yeah. You can also do partner accountability, right? Like maybe they have to go over their work with a partner and check off with a partner if they did it or not. So partner accountability can be helpful. But this is great for fast finishers and just for ensuring that your kids are aspiring to the quality and quantity of writing that you want them to, okay? So those are the 3 tools that I highly recommend. If you have any other supports that you recommend, would love to hear those as well. But again, those were the word bank, the sentence starters or sentence frames, and then the self-assessment checklist. So those are some tools that I love, and the differentiated writing prompts make that so easy. And those really just came from my own frustration with being like, okay, my kids need different things, but that's really time consuming. So now I just have these and I print them, which is amazing. All right, tip number 5. And by the way, I would love to know if you have any questions. So as we're kind of, moving through the last tip, which I have a lot of different things to share with that. As I'm kind of moving through the last tip though, if you have any questions that are coming up, don't hesitate to put them in the comments. All right, so tip number 5, last tip is to teach your kids how to revise and edit, which probably, of course we want to do that, right? But I want to drive that point home because getting kids to make changes to their own writing substantive changes is hard. And, you know, it does develop over time, but we also have to think about ourselves as writers. I can't tell you how many times, like, I've written an email or a blog post or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I've read it. It's great. It's done. And then it goes out there, and then I'm like, oh, shoot, there was a typo. You become blind to your own errors. That's very normal. And so our kids who are just learning how to write, they may not want to take the time to revise and edit. They may be blind to their own errors, like I said, that, you know, adults can be. There's a variety of reasons why they're not going to spot their own mistakes. So this is something that we have to model over and over and over again. My expectation for my kids is that for every single piece of writing, we're not going to publish it necessarily. For some pieces we do, you know, we make it fancy, whatever, and we share with an audience. But for every piece of writing, my expectation is that they look it over. Okay, and what looking it over is going to look different at different levels, and I'll talk specifically how it might look. But my expectation is not that they just write once and they're done. Okay, so modeling, of course, is so important. Another thing you could consider doing is when you print copies of the prompt, have a couple of extras on hand, because you'll find that if kids are really getting into revising and editing, they might like mess up their paper, and that bothers some kids, so maybe they want to copy it over. I don't recommend having them spend tons and tons of time copying things over. You know, if we're going to publish something and like put it out into the world or share with a partner or whatever, like something special, yes, we do copy things over, but just your day-to-day, I usually just have them write once. But if they have those extra copies, they know like, hey, if I get frustrated and this is really messed up, they can get another copy. I want to respect trees, right? And not use too much paper. So I don't make tons and tons of extra copies, but just having a few can be helpful for those kids that need it. Linda says, big thing is not fixating over mistakes too. Yeah, Linda says, I have my kids use pen to write so they don't make a hole in the paper for it to be perfect. They learn to X out the mistake and move on. I've heard of lots of teachers using pens because then they don't, you know, they're not like erasing like crazy. So yes, great tip. Okay, so we talked about having a couple of extra copies of the prompt on hand. The self-assessment checklist can help as well. Now let's talk about like what revising and editing might look like at the different levels. So at kindergarten, I started, relatively early on in the school year, but my expectations are just kindergarten friendly. So at the kindergarten level, I do encourage them to look over every single piece, but at a certain point, I say, okay, the entire class is doing partner editing. I don't know if you can do partner editing this year, depending on your social distancing guidelines. Let me know if you can or can't. Curious what your situation is. So let me know in the comments. But in a normal year, I really recommend partner editing and revising because just like adults, that partner there can give you a lot of perspective and help you see things that you couldn't see. So with kindergarten, I just have them read their little work to each other, or if it's just a drawing, like talk about it. And then I might have some sort of very simple visual checklist for them, and they go through it with their partner. The whole class is editing and revising at the same time. With first grade, you can often do that as well, but with first and second grade, what I like to teach them to do, and I believe I have a blog post about this on learningattheprimarypond.com, with first and second, I like to do something called a revising and editing table. This has been magic for my kids. Not all first graders are quite ready for this, so maybe it's something you do later in the year. But the way I've worked it is there's a separate table in the classroom, and you can like use it for other stuff during, you know, like math centers or guided reading or whatever. But during writing time, there's like a revising and editing table. And my later first and second graders know that when they're finished with a piece, they take their finished piece and they go to the revising and editing table. On the revising and editing table, there might be anything from like sticky notes to write things down, special pens, rubrics, little visual checklists, whatever tool they're going to need to fix up their writing. At the revising and editing table, they sit there and they wait for a partner to come. But while they're waiting, they're supposed to be revising and editing their own work. So they're not just literally sitting there waiting, they're working on their own piece. And then when a partner comes, what they do is they read their piece to their partner. Their partner has also finished a piece. So they read their piece to their partner. The partner gives feedback. They don't necessarily sit there and make the changes right away. I like to use these mini sticky notes for them to just like mark things quickly, which is why sometimes it's easier to do with second grade than first grade. But They can like stick some mini sticky notes on the page, and then their partner reads them their piece, and then they switch roles, right? So they're each giving each other feedback on their finished piece. What I have found to be so helpful with this revising and editing table, and again, I don't do this in kindergarten, I've never attempted it. If you can do it in kinder, amazing, but you know, even early first grade is kind of dicey. But when you get it up and running, number one, it's so motivating because the kids like to work with a partner. Number two, it's a reminder, because the table is always going, that, hey, when they finish a piece of writing, they're supposed to go to that table and work on improving their writing. Number three, of course, it's amazing for just getting the kids to give feedback to each other that they might not notice themselves. But I think what's most powerful, actually, or one of the most powerful things, is that it's a physically different place in the classroom. When they're sitting at their desk writing, sometimes I feel like my kids tell me that they've edited and they don't even know that they haven't. Like, they're not lying to me, but they don't even recognize that they have not edited their work when I ask them about it. So having to get up and go to a different physical location in the classroom gets them in a different mindset. So it does take some time to set up. If you happen to use, not this, but like my writing workshop units that are in my Learning at the Primary Pond TPT store, in first and second grade, I actually walk you through getting it set up because it does take some modeling for sure. That can be a really powerful tool for motivating them to revise and edit. So again, tip number 5 was just to teach revising and editing, model it over and over again. Try some, visual checklists. You can see that there's little images to remind them of what they're supposed to be doing, and just expect the kids to get into a habit of it. In reality, as adult writers, even if it's just writing an email, I spend time revising it. It's not necessarily, like I'm like, okay, I write the email and now I revise it. But as I'm working, I'm changing it. I'm trying to make it better. I'm fixing mistakes. So even though we won't necessarily see our kids become masters of revision and editing at the K-2 level, we need to model it and we need to encourage them to do it continuously. And that even applies to just like little prompt writing. It doesn't have to be extensive. You don't have to do, like days and days of it, but even just a little bit is important. All right, so those are my 5 tips. I hope that those are helpful. I am happy to answer any other questions that you have about teaching writing. Again, my 5 tips were: number 1, provide the right kind of prompt. So not super specific, but also not like super broad. Use visuals when you can. My tip number 2 was to model your response because the kids need to see that. Tip number 3 was to provide graphic organizers. I showed you some different options. Number 4 was to differentiate prompts, provide different types of support depending on what kids need. You may have different groups of students with different prompts. I teach them that that's okay. Not different prompts, but different supports on the prompts. And then the last one was just to always be modeling, revising, and editing. I know we know that we got to teach it, but even with a thing like this, just model how you do it and think aloud, and just have that expectation that the kids are going to be reviewing every single piece of writing that they do. All right, I hope that this was helpful. If these differentiated writing prompts would be helpful to you, again, if you missed it, every single prompt has different versions. So it might just be like room for a picture and the lines, or it might just be sentence starters. Like there's tons of copies of each prompt so that you can just go, hey, I want this and this, I print and I'm done. You know that you don't have a ton of time because I totally understand that. So this can really just, help you save some time and also help give your kids what they need. Got them for kinder, first and second. They're on sale, I believe, through October 24th. If you do have any questions about them, I'm always happy to answer. I have both like the kinder, first and second bundles, but I also have just informational, just opinion, just narrative for each grade level. Yes, Linda, Think Aloud is huge for kinder. Jacqueline, these templates are all in the differentiated writing prompts. Let me grab the little link for you. They're already on sale. You don't need like a code or anything, so you are good to go through the 24th. You are so welcome, Meletta. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, by the way. All right, you all. Well, I'll let you go. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to come back. If you're watching the recording, whatever, always happy to answer them. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you.